This lesson is about algebraic expressions, and in order to know about algebraic expressions, you need to know what a variable is. So a variable is a letter that represents a number. Pretty simple. The letter X is the most commonly used variable. Put it right here. But you can also use Y for a variable, or the letter C, or M. You have a lot of choices. I'll stick with X in these examples. So this is a variable, X. When there's a number in front of it like 5, okay, it means 5 times X, 5 times the variable. There's no operation shown between the 5 and the X, so you just assume that it's multiplication. Okay, this number 5 in front of the X is called the coefficient. So I'll mark that right here, coefficient. Okay, it's a little bit hard to read, but that's called the coefficient right there. This whole thing together is a term, so 5x is a term. Now if I do something like put plus 2 after it, okay, this 2 is not a coefficient. This 2 is a constant term. Okay. There's fireworks out there. It's the 4th of July. This is a constant term. There's no variable that it's being multiplied by, but it is a term, just like 5x is a term. So together, this whole thing is an algebraic expression, 5x plus 2. It has the operations multiplication and addition. It has the numbers 5 and 2 and the variable x. If someone asks you to evaluate this expression when x equals 3, let's say, let's go over how to do that. Okay, so we're going to evaluate when x equals, let's say, 3. Okay, I think I said 3. Okay, so what that means is when you evaluate an algebraic expression, it means you substitute the number, which in this case 3, in for x. So I'm going to write it down here. 5 times 3 plus 2. We're not done. What we just did was the first part, which is to substitute the number in for the variable. Okay? Now we have to simplify. Now we have multiplication and we have addition. We should use the order of operations. And the order of operations say that you should multiply and divide before you add and subtract. In this case, we have multiplication. So 5 times 3 is 15. I'm going to put that right here. And then we write plus 2. Now we're ready to add. 15 plus 2 is 17. Okay, here's another algebraic expression. X squared minus 3x plus 5. Okay, let's evaluate this when x is negative 1. Evaluate when x is negative 1. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put negative 1 in for x here, and we're going to put negative 1 in for x here. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use parentheses when I do this, and it helps us to keep track of everything. So what I'm going to do is we have x squared right here, and I'm going to substitute negative 1 in for x, but I'm going to be safe and put parentheses around the negative 1. Okay? And I'll show you why. So negative 1 squared minus 3 parentheses negative 1. Oops, it's a little far out there. Okay, and then plus 5. Okay, so we did the first part. We substituted the number in for the variable. Okay, we've got that. Now we're going to simplify. Now, the order of operations tell us that we should do any exponents before we multiply, which is what we have here, and add, which is what we have over here. Okay, so -1 squared, okay, -1 squared, let's write that out. -1 squared is equal to -1 times -1. Okay, well, when you multiply a negative and a negative, it's positive, okay? And then you just multiply the numbers. 1 times 1 is 1, so it's +1 or just 1. Okay, so this becomes 1, okay? Now I'm going to carry down the minus sign here, and it says 3 times -1. So let's take a look at that. 3 times -1, okay? Well, a positive times a negative is a negative, okay? So we know that 3 times -1 is going to be a negative number, okay? And then 3 times 1 is 3. So we have it right here. So I have the minus sign, but we also have -3 here. And then +5. Okay? So we did the exponents, we multiplied, and now we're going to add and subtract from left to right. Okay? It just means that we go in order from left to right. So we notice that we have subtraction and then addition. Well, we're going to do the subtraction first because from left to right, it's the first thing that appears. Okay, so let's continue. Now, it says minus -3. Whenever you subtract a negative number, it's the same thing as adding. So I'm going to write this down. 1 plus 3 plus 5. Okay, that's a lot cleaner. Okay. Again, I put a plus here because subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding a positive. Okay, so now it's all addition. 1 plus 3 is 4. Okay, I'm going to write everything out and just do 2 things at a time. I just did the 1 plus 3 plus 5. I could have done that in my head, but I want to show everything. I want to show all the steps, and you should too, so you don't get confused. 4 plus 5 is 9. Okay, so there we go. So when you evaluate x squared minus 3x plus 5, when x equals 1, you get 9. Let's try another example. Okay, so we're going to evaluate. (6 plus c) over 3 minus a. And let's do it when c equals 1 and a equals 2. Okay, we're going, this algebraic expression has 2 variables. The variable is c and the other variable is a. Let's go ahead and substitute 1 for c and let's substitute 2 for a. So we have 6 plus 1 divided by, now 3 minus a, so a is 2, so that would be 3 minus 2. Okay, and we can simplify that some more. In the numerator we have 6 plus 1 is 7, and in the denominator we have 3 minus 2 is 1. So 7 over 1 means 7 divided by 1. How many 1s are there in 7? Well, there's 7 of them. 7 divided by 1 is 7.